Welcome to faces popping up on screens and people connecting via audio. I'll let everybody get sort of settled for just a moment while that happens, and then I will get us started. Okay, wow, it is so great to see everybody here. I want to welcome you all to our admittedly strangely timed MFA homecoming. Normally these things happen in the fall, I know. Anyway, I am Sheila Squilanti. For those of you who I have not met, I am the director of Chatham's MFA program, and I want to tell you all that there is 6 inches of snow in Pittsburgh today. No, that's not what I want to tell you. What I really want to tell you is that I'm very happy to see you and to welcome you back if you are one of our alums for this celebration of your talent and success. We've been looking forward to this event for a long time. We kicked off this kind of mini homecoming last night on campus. We had a wonderful reading with alums Beth Gilstrap and Ryan Rozeski, who both read from their recently published books and offered wisdom to our current students about persistence, time management, voiciness. What does that mean? It was great to be together again in person in Welcome Room, coincidentally on the 2-year anniversary to the day that Chatham shut down because of the pandemic. So that was our first on-campus event in 2 years, and it was a wonderful success. And about those 2 years, they have been hard for all of us in so many different ways. But many of you have heard me say this over and over again. There is one blessing that came out of it, and that is this space of boxes, which we all feel, I don't know, maybe a measure of love-hate towards. But what it has given us as a program and as a community is the ability to connect across space in a way that we weren't able to do before. So I'm very grateful to Wi-Fi and to Zoom and to all of you, obviously, for being here and for the access that we now have that we didn't have before. So I am going to give you sort of a description of how the day is going to go before we begin. And you can always feel free to ask me questions as the day proceeds if you forget any of this. But first of all, feel free to keep your cameras on or off as you like. Cameras on are always nicer because it's nice to see faces instead of black boxes. Any of you who teach know that. I am going to ask you all to stay muted for the time being. Okay, so this is the link that you use to get into this Zoom room is the only one you're going to need today because we will just be branching out into breakout rooms for various parts of the day. So we're calling this the main room. And this is where the alumni reading will take place right after this in this room, so you don't have to go anywhere. And then we will have panel sessions that will be in breakout rooms. And we will help you get there. If you can't, I'll announce it. I won't just expect you to go. So if you can get in by yourself, you do that. And if you, for some reason, if your Zoom version doesn't allow you to move yourself in and out of breakout rooms, Joe Bashadi and I are very, very adept at that particular thing. So we will help you. Okay, let's see. The other thing that will happen in the main room is our Emerging Black Writer in Residence session. After that, we'll also have panel sessions in breakout rooms, and then come back, all of us, to this main room to start our happy hour and reunion time. And what will happen then is that you'll have the option of either staying in the main room and chatting and talking with your friends who I hope are here, or we are also going to create various breakout rooms that have sort of specific Chatham themes, and that'll be obvious once we get there. We're going to be creating those during the day. At 6 o'clock, we're going to break for dinner. And then after that at 7, for those of you who can, please, you're invited to return to participate or to spectate with the MFA students who are hosting our Word Circus reading series. I believe that everyone who was registered for this event should have received a sign up sheet or a link to take you to a Google Doc to sign up if you'd like to be part of Word Circus, if you'd like to be part of the open mic. But I will put that in the chat at some point today as well if you didn't receive that. So, so think about it, maybe screw up your courage and put your name down. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, I want also to say that there will always be a Chatham, a kind of program representative in the sessions. It'll either be myself or Joe Bishotti. Joe, say hi. There's Joe. Or we have students, Hetty Gerace. Hetty, are you here somewhere? I think Hetty's here. You'll know. And Derek Maiolo are also going to be assisting today. So those folks will be in the panels. Yes, Hetty's here. Okay. Somebody will always be in the main room as well. That's probably, that somebody is probably me or Joe. You can feel free and encouraged to use the chat function and the reactions all day to emote and applaud and to talk to each other. I really encourage that. And if you need to, you should also be able to send a direct message chat to either Joe or myself if you have a question or need assistance with something that is not specifically connected to the panels. Let's see what else. Okay. I also want to call your attention, and I'm going to plop a link in a second here. We have, this is a virtual space, but we also want to promote the work of all the writers here. So we have a bookshop.org page for Chatham, which is there. I just put it in the chat. Encourage you to visit it during the day. All of our faculty books are listed there, and you can purchase them through our affiliate bookstore, which is White Whale Books in Pittsburgh. So they get a little bit of, business from us that way. So our faculty books are there, and also many of the titles from the panelists that you're going to be experiencing today, or listening to today, I guess. Okay, I don't think I have any other housekeeping. Let me double check my little list here. That is it. So I am excited that we got to end last night with a reading words, the creative, output of alums, and that's how we get to begin today as well. So we're just going to move right into the first of our events today, which is an alumni reading. I am going to be the person to introduce these four fine people. And then I'm going to introduce, they're going to read, I'll introduce, they're going to read, we're going to go in alphabetical order. And the first person to read tonight is going to be Lake Angela. Today. Lake Angela is a poet, translator, and dancer choreographer who creates at the confluence of verbal language and movement. She holds a PhD from the University of Texas at Dallas for her intersemiotic translations of Austrian expressionist poetry into dance, and has her MFA in poetry. She is a medieval mystic and Gwin. Her full-length books of poetry, Organ Blooms and Words for the Dead, are available from Future Cycle Press. She is poetry editor for Pump Valat, International Literature and Arts Journal, and an executive contributor for the Swedish business journal Brains Magazine. As director of Compania, Lake Angela advocates for schizophrenia, spectrum creativity, and some of her poetry dance can be found at lakeangeladance.com. Please welcome Lake Angela.
Thank you. I'm so nervous. It's been a long time since I've seen some of you. Thank you so much for inviting me to read. And in the spirit of a homecoming event, I've decided to share with you some new work that also describe a kind of homecoming. We won't get to the point where I make a protective nest of my psychosis, but this is about my coming home as a first dance therapist for a rural Kansas forensic psychiatric institute, which was defunct and defunded. Please Let me take the opportunity to make this a content warning if the treatment of psychiatric patients disturbs anyone. If not, please enjoy. Asylum. On the road, I doze to the pitch and roll of my own deep and different darknesses I do not yet fully comprehend. My wound trails from the coast to the center, winding away what the doctors dismissed as products of conception. By the time we stop, I am empty and more thoroughly exposed than I ever have been. Our destination was a refuge built by the friends of the mentally ill. Now that the inpatients have no friends, it is a prison for those deemed not guilty of rape and murder by reason of insanity. On the same wards, the victims of torture are huddled into corners. Those committed for associative thinking or petty treason await judgment. I have come to heal with dance. There is a bastion formed by stubble fields, valleys of horses and hawks who escort me along the wires, and corroded metal devices for retribution discarded along the hilltop, fringed with streams and memories that seep from condemned buildings, skirting the hospital that bore the title, Asylum for the Insane. I augur I am finally going home. I feel strong hope in this decision. My room. I am handed a key and commanded to walk to the edge, where the asylum invades the field of winter wheat. I find my office in an abandoned cottage, littered with past patients' last words. The burst belly of a drum bleeding in the bathtub, a rusted knife splitting the lip of the kitchen sink. Composition books recording blank yellowed pages, a bird's clean skeleton bleaching on the sill. Bare and dusty from preparing dance therapy, my feet graze the surface of the forgotten cemetery. Under the main grounds, the morgue is numb with preserved tongues and orbital clasps for lobotomy. Underneath my desk, where I doze with the snake who nests in my brain, rest the bones of the hospital's unnamed dead. It is disrespectful to sleep over these stones of the insane without dreaming our dreams. The children. The asylum schoolhouse is long locked but not empty. On a child-sized desk, a tattered doll holds a tea party with a glass vial labeled laudanum. It was compassionate to teach children who lacked the innate capacity for reason. Those more bestial than the cowed prisoners led to expend their animal passions in orderly gardens. Now a wilderness crowned with violet red musk thistle, the outlaw cousins of sunflowers said to choke cattle to death. Bindweed cracks window glass, unfurling soundless white bells. Johnson grass breaks past derelict floorboards, ascends the dirt-caked classrooms, sun-dried silence. Kay describes her old school desk as though there is nothing remarkable about growing up in the state asylum. Born in C Ward to a silent reception among patients nodding like thistle, planted in metal chairs fused to brown floors, she never left. From fellow students committed for idiocy or epilepsy, she learned her first words. Tremulous scrawlings of horses copied from picture books still adorn her open door. The farthest she has traveled from the plastic mattress that has always been hers is the graveyard beyond the quadruple set of doors. Though the stones are marked only by numbers, she knows which weights cover her childhood friends. I wonder if, like me, she watches the bindweed climb and the yellow pigweed dig deeper inside, but dreams of poppies, ecstatic red chalices, bowing in a wind she cannot feel. This one's a little lighter. Discovering the bones. In motion, every body transforms. We lose our skins and then our musculatures until pure expression is exposed. M enters the dance as a conglomeration of pixels. At first, the self-portrait he shows us appears to be a coloring book image of a ripe pumpkin guarded by bleached skeletons and violet bats. As we dance, he morphs into Crocodile Gaina. I need a bubble pipe. Katto brazzi do case. He sweats fragments of Russian with each heavy step. He offers a lesson in the bones of grammar to the moist and pungent atmosphere. He once took classes at UC Berkeley until the hospital terminated his time there. They aren't satisfied with the term papers I left, he notes. Please write and assure them I'll be back. Say I'll donate my bones to Berkeley. When I am just bones, shaking and dancing, M says, you're irrational, you know that? Why are you just bouncing bones? Let's jump to the ceiling like leopards. Then we explore the floor, scattered heaps of words and skin cells coloring a new context. Searching through the dust, saffron of Mars and blue litmus, I find it. Just as the light catches the rough edges, he says, hey, give me back my star. 2 minutes. Oh, sorry. Okay, these concern my special project, schizophrenia spectrum creativity, and the meaningful aspects of psychosis. Our dances, and I translate. When the wind comes, and it will, the earth will quake, will wiggle a bit, will move, unrolling a bed, curling a nest. The angels emerge with tangled hair, dirty hands and feet, and eyes like mine. Eyes that see as they guide angered waves. The wolves will memorize the wind in their eyes that causes them not to see, that stings them with salt so they hurt. They cry and the angels comfort them in turn by crying back, louder than them. A wailing ensues. The wail breaks and leaves me at the oldest wolf's knee, and I pray in her mouth. I climb into her mouth to pray. She treasures me there, warm saliva and slight acid of living breath, a cradle flushed with wine. Our paws can feel and our snouts scent in heightened senses. We are warm in this cold. With hearts too large, with enlarged hearts, we will either die or be in love. For the instant the dying lasts or breaks, we will have both. And the last one is from the same situation, the same event. Stomach, God, glove, and fruit. R delivers another urgent message. The clowns want you to go homey. Homey is a place for the clowns. The wolves want you to go home. Home is a place that is real. The wolves are in God, and the wolves come from God. When we are alone, he confides. When we dance with both feet on the ground, we can read the wind we would sense through thick fur were we allowed outside. He is another visionary in whom no one stakes faith. Together we are wolves. We move our paws to feel the breeze and learn from his songs the ways to move. Sometimes his words transform to salad, which the doctors want to eliminate as rotten, but the leaves are nourishing to me. He trusts me. I see between the lines, between the lines, between the lines, and I am telling you. I also believe in this between. In between is where I become. Oh yes, I saw you dancing there. We recognize ourselves, and he makes a painting of my movements he calls stomach, God, glove, and fruit. In the floating stomach glows a fruit. The fruit grows its own tree from the inside out. God reaches in and twists that tree with a glove. I too find it painful. I don't want the God-gloved hand to grip my growing tree and twist it again in his violent fist. To combat this, we decide upon open palms. Open the palm and the eye opens. This is the way of the wolves. I think I'm about out of time, so thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your work with us, Lake. That was really wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our next reader is Ben Gwin. Ben Gwin is the author of the novel Clean Time, the true story of Ronald Reagan Middleton, and the forthcoming book, Team Building. Ben's fiction and essays have appeared in the Normal School, Lit Hub, The Rumpus, and others. He was the editor of the anthology, The Pittsburgh Neighborhood Guidebook. He lives in Pittsburgh with his daughter. Please welcome back Ben Gwin.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. This is great. I'm going to read part of my new book that is about me and my coworkers unionizing my old job, and also like some more personal parts. So this is from the beginning. March 2019, if anybody can remember 2019. I left the hospital with a catheter and a bottle of oxycodone. I put my hand down the front of my sweatpants and held the empty urinary bag next to my thigh so it wouldn't jostle while I walked away from the building. When I was far enough from the exit, I fished a half-smoked cigarette from my pack and sucked it down while I waited for my mom to pull the car around. The cigarette tasted terrible. A day earlier, I had gone in for hemorrhoid surgery, but there were complications from the anesthesia that left me unable to pee. They kept me overnight, waiting to see if I could go on my own. The nurse gave me a plastic jug to keep next to the bed. She said I should be able to fill the jug about halfway. I tried and failed. 3 times, nurses used the catheter to empty my bladder. After the 4th time, they left the catheter in. It hurt. But 6 more days and they'd remove it if there were no further complications. I'd scheduled the procedure for the Thursday before the opening weekend of the NCAA basketball tournament. I was supposed to be back at work on Monday. I texted my manager and let him know I'd be out longer than expected. He replied, "I'll email directions for short-term disability. Hope you feel better." I ambled past a bulldozer surrounded by upturned earth sitting empty in the adjacent lot. I leaned on a bus shelter, high on pain meds, and stared blankly at the clouds above the hill across the street. It smelled like rainwater and dirt, one of the first nice days of spring. I felt myself piss. The bag in my pants grew heavy and warm. When my mom pulled up, I eased into the passenger seat and we headed to my apartment in Bloomfield. I was very lucky my mom was able to visit and to help watch Gracie, my child, while I recovered. Gracie was having a tough time in middle school and I was having a tough time at work. "I never thought you'd wind up in Depends before your father," my mom said. "Thanks, Mom," I said, and leaned my head against the car window as we weaved through North Oakland towards Liberty Avenue. Aside from some Vicodin after a root canal a few years earlier, I hadn't taken anything stronger than Tylenol in over a decade. My tolerance was shot. The city looked like it had soft edges. We hit a pothole. I bounced on the seat and the catheter shifted. "Sorry," my mom said. Back at my apartment, I emptied my piss bag and got situated on the couch. I taped the tube sticking out of my urethra to my thigh below the bottom of the adult diaper, then looped it up over the elastic of my sweatpants in a plastic S shape. There was a clip at the bottom. It connected to a plastic bag that I set in a bus-pan on the floor. Every movement hurt. I was worried I might run out of pills. I waited until I couldn't stand the pain anymore, then took half of one. I would try to hold off during the day and take them at night so I could sleep. More than anything, I was thankful I didn't have to be at work in the morning. 5 days later, I woke from another nightmare, gasping for air in the pitch black, and almost rolled off the couch. I walked to the bathroom, taking tiny steps so I wouldn't tear open the stitches in my butt, and I emptied the piss bag into the toilet, cleaned the blood off my ass, and put on a clean diaper. The living room smelled faintly of blood and urine. I heard screaming from outside and waddled over to the window. The neighbors across the street were fighting again. They yelled about money. The guy threw her stuff out on the street. She cursed at him while she gathered her clothes. Then he went back inside and she waited on the curb until someone in a black truck came and picked her up. Their kids always seemed happy whenever I saw them on the street. I'd only said hello in passing when I saw them walking around or playing with their kids in the parking lot on the corner. I wanted to pull one of the parents aside and talk to them. Maybe I could help. Maybe one day I'd tell them what I'd been through with Gracie's mom and how I knew there were only a few ways their situation could end, and most of them were bad. But I didn't. Even if I'd had the nerve, I knew it wouldn't do any good. If someone had offered Gracie's mom help when we were in that situation, she would have just tried to rob them. I assume this because she robbed me when I tried to help her. I watched as a guy sat on his front porch, smoked a cigarette, and stared at his phone. Calling the cops would be a disaster and most likely make things worse for the kids. I wished them luck and watched them like an alternative timeline in a life in which I didn't stay sober and Gracie's mom and I had stayed together. Heroin, booze, and fighting in public. Dealers coming and going. I couldn't imagine being in the middle of it again in my late 30s. I sat back down on the couch, took half an oxy, and put on the Sarah Connor Chronicles, the Terminator spin-off series from 10 years earlier. The first time I watched the show was in 2009 when I worked nights as a 28-year-old busboy. Gracie was almost 2 and her mom was coming unglued. We were at the start of our decade-long custody battle. The economy was in the tank, and I couldn't find a day job with my English degree and no experience. I had a part-time job editing social media posts for a company in Connecticut a few hours a week during the day. All I wanted to do was write. I wanted to apply to grad school, but I couldn't leave Pittsburgh, so my options were limited. Gracie's mom was on probation and couldn't leave the state. I wasn't in position to take my daughter and move. I felt like a failure. At the time, I'd been sober for almost 4 years and hadn't done anything with my life. I was on food stamps. They wouldn't even make me a waiter at work. I was stuck. But I would come home after buzzing tables all night and watch the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I found the show on network TV and fell in love with the sci-fi escapism. I ordered the first season on Netflix back when they still sent DVDs in the mail. Maybe it was the timing that made the show seem so important to me. It's not very good, but I do love the Terminator mythology. Despite all the botched reboots, I hoped the IP holders would declare the show part of the canon. The depths of the letdown of all the sequels after Terminator 2 was vast. What should be a science fiction powerhouse full of time travel, killer robots, artificial intelligence, and sharp social criticism turned into a string of mediocre action movies. The wasted potential and downward trajectory of the movie franchise fascinated me. Maybe I found it relatable. The unintentional gaps in the narrative allowed me to fill them in myself, and I lowered my expectations and watched every attempted reboot with a sympathetic eye. Compared to most of the movies they released, the Sarah Connor Chronicles held its own. Solid B-movie fare. Rewatching it 12 years later, high as fuck on painkillers with a tube in my dick, I got wistful and sad. I felt as stuck in my fake job at Google as I did then when I was a busboy at a steakhouse, writing bad short stories, editing Facebook posts during the day, worried my daughter's mother would overdose while I was clearing plates from some coked out socialite or sex pest quarterback. I lit some incense to cover the smell and took a few puffs from a vape I bought to hold myself over while I was stuck inside. I slid in and out of vivid opioid-laced dreams about cyborgs, the apocalypse, and work. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for sharing your words with us.
Welcome. Thanks again.
Yeah. Okay. Our next reader is Elia Hohauser-Thatcher. Elia Hohauser-Thatcher is the author of The Prophet's Toothbrush, a chapbook of poetry published by Finishing Line Press in 2021. His work has recently appeared in Great Lakes Review, The Maine Review, and The Offbeat. Currently, he is pursuing his PhD in rhetoric and composition and teaching at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. He also teaches creative writing in Detroit Public Schools as a writer in residence with Inside Out Literary Arts. Please welcome Elia.
All right. Hello, everybody. What's going on? Thank you so much, Sheila, for that introduction. Super jazzed to be here with you all and see familiar faces, new faces. Glad to be reading with Lake and Ben and Janette. Super cool. Wish I was in person with you all, but so it goes. I'm going to be reading just 2 poems today, but they're pretty long, so I think they'll fill the time quite nicely. The first poem is called Folk Tales, and it's actually about the first 2 months of the pandemic, which I spent in small town West Michigan, which is where my mom lives. I was staying with my mom at the beginning of the pandemic. So this is about that kind of interesting experience. Somebody in my family's lived out that way since like the 1860s. So there's a lot of kind of familial history there. But anyway, this is called Folk Tales in Ravenna, Michigan. 1. We sink our dead in the acre of backyard amid the trillium. Aunt Mary with her stutter, Uncle Tom with his walker, maple leaves of russet and copper. Dad buried his anger here, and up grew an oak. He sneaks here on quarter moons, peels off bark for tea, slips twigs under my pillow. Mom buried swollen bladders of wine and flax grew, twine in little figure 8s pulled taut, pinioned her wrists. I buried a figurine in the shape of a fertile woman, smeared in layers of sap. My eyes glazed over as 1,000 tiny cocks burst from the ground. 2. Today, I take down names of every worm dried up on the Muscatala Trail. Syrupy shapes I recognize from cable news, where anchors chant selkie songs and bodies are tagged, scrubbed, quantified. Blonde children glide through orchard grass, rush into reeds that wiggle and squeak as a farmer clears branches. Up the path to his barn, a stainless banner sails, but it's more important that lawns wear 2-inch haircuts. So I traced runes on his yellow grass. This symbolic ritual like drying hurricanes with toilet paper. I jog to Conklin and back, disregard these violences. Rattling chains, simulated corpses strewn about, lungs overflowing with water. 3. In 1866, Edwin Thatcher whips his horses from Pennsylvania to Michigan. The town sounds like Northern Italy, sounds fancy. He ends up in a giant marsh, shrugs, decides to farm. Evenings, he tucks his 5 children into bed, tells Catherine he's going to work on something in the pole barn, which turns out to be a 5th of gin. The moon sachets, shows her ankles between wooden bars as peeping Tom stars sneak a look. Edwin, naked and dead drunk in the hay, laughs at the sexy moon, the horny stars. Next morning, trillium grows from his ears. 4. Night's jacket covers my shame. 2 bears on muted laptop screen roar their pleasure as bat blue bottles twinkle on the nightstand. I ignore familiar spirits in our backyard. The TV in my room screams in horror. The TV in the living room screams in horror. The TV in mom's room screams in horror. Our houseplants droop and flicker. Oak bark and flaxseed covers my comforter. The moaning intensifies into screeching cacophony. I sleep on top of it all. 5. Mom is asleep in my coffee, dreaming off Cabernet and last night's scuffles. She's so tiny, she fits right in my mug. Much easier to take care of her in there. She does not stir despite the caffeine, and I'd rather her not see me thinking lustily of little soldiers growing in our backyard. I hear water running in the next room, seeping in from our flooded backyard. My ancestors thud dully against the walls. A haze rises and dissipates from the grass outside like a jacket cast off. Mom rises too, grows into 5'8" with an apology, and among our chorus of I love you too, the trillium grows a little higher. All right, cool. So that was my first poem. My second poem is called Transfiguration. So as I said before, I'm from Michigan. I currently live in Michigan. I just really love Michigan, guys. Just really love it. And this whole poem is about this kind of desire that I was thinking about, which is just the desire to embody the entire state of Michigan. So this is Transfiguration. Manistee Forest in shades of tawny rot, everything waterlogged and no hiking boots. It's really wet in Michigan, really wet in Michigan. Brusque cold, trees shudder as they shimmy off death. I scowl at red pines that grow in rows, giants of old West Michigan planted to be cut. I huff in the muck and wish I was Michigan. Beautiful in a scrubby, swampy forest kind of way. Ancient as the worn down porcupines, drowsy as bear fossils in dunes, vulgar as the crest of a Lake Huron wave. I won't need to celebrate what beats behind the waterfall of my rib cage. I could become the 5 lakes, curvaceous boulders at pictured rocks, cry of skimmers on shore, a fist, the embodied knowledge of 10,000 years of pain. I reach a clearing where 3 white birches tell their tales. One of rebirth, tranquility, and mercy. Something flowers in me when I see them. Liquid gold in my fingertips. Feeling less like a 165-pound raccoon, less like dead hornets in a urinal, less like condos stacked upright, bivouacking soldiers. All I know is concrete, smoke pouring from a Cadillac on East Grand Boulevard, weeds growing between cracks in the parking lot of American Axle. This is not a love poem, I am categorizing that bit of self caught in a ditch with two wheels spinning. Come and stomp your boots at my porch of laughing hyperbole. The A-frame cabin aglow behind my eyes, armpits smelling of trout, shoes overflowing with sand and Petoskey stones. Saggy bum, foxtail critter, open maw, stardust, rusty plants. I become a canoe, and I never get splinters. The lake water cool on my belly. The woods in front seem like they go on forever, and it makes no difference to me. The fish think I am a very big fish, so they squiggle away in fear, even those nasty old pike. It's a nice, sweet song of a life, even when men so rudely sit on me and kill bluegill in my bow for sport. It's an honest, messy song. Thank you.
Elia, thank you so much. It's so good to hear your work again. Okay, our final reader for this morning. And after this reading, I'll just remind you that we have a little break until 2:15 when you'll return and we'll head into our first panel sessions. So our final reader for this morning is Janette Schafer. Janette is the founder and editor-in-chief of social justice anthologies Beautiful Cadaver Project, Pittsburgh. She is the author of 3 books of poetry, the most recent one being Mother's Unbearable Itch, published by Alien Buddha Press. Her poems, essays, memoir, and flash pieces have appeared in numerous publications. Her play Mad Virginia was the winner of the 2018 Pittsburgh Original Short Play Series. Janette was also a panelist for the 2022 Northeast Modern Language Association. Janette is also a realtor licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. Please welcome back Janette Schafer.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to see so many familiar faces. And I wanted to start with saying one of my favorite quotes that I remember from my classes at Chatham was Dr. McNair saying that we write our obsessions. And the obsessions I like to write about the most are my Venezuelan heritage, my recovery process, and the expressions and phases of life and identity as we grow older. So I had 2 chat books come out recently, one called Something Here Will Grow in 2022. So of course, not much happened with it because we had a super huge pandemic, but there's a link if you would like to purchase it. And I'll start with a couple of poems from there. And many of these poems came from my thesis. The first is The Disappeared. Jorge was my dad's younger brother. In an old picture, I am dressed as a clown for Carnival in Venezuela, holding onto Tio while we both smile. He became a Los Desaparecidos in his early 20s, but he was so aloof, it is hard to say exactly when we lost him. Hugo Chavez took sons from mothers, brothers from sisters, husbands from wives, uncles from little girls. After 20 years, cousin Ana meets Jorge in a market in Caracas as he shops for platanos and pabellon as if he has been among us all along. He cannot tell her where he has been. He says his eyes are corn husk, his skin shucked wheat. He has returned transformed, a reverse chrysalis, mariposa with ripped wings, a caterpillar on the belly. Los Desaparecidos, never supposed to come back. This next one is Gabriel at Mr. Taco. Gabriel is my father. I am not sure why he called me, but since he never calls me, I agree to meet him anyway. This never ends well for me with him, my father. We meet at Mr. Taco. The lady at the counter is older than me and quite cute. He says, "Don't call me dad, call me Gabriel." He wants to make a move. Sure, Gabriel. I ordered cheese quesadillas while he makes his pitch for love at Mr. Taco. He gets 3 bean burritos, and as usual, I pay. She slips him her digits and a Choco Taco. This will not end well for her either. This next one is Harvest, where the chapbook gets its title. The sweetness of fruit is almost unbearable. Relief melts and penetrates her mouth, cleanses the palate from the tang of semen. Watermelon seeds fly from beneath her teeth. On the porch, she waits for the thunder. Her feet dangle, reach towards the coming water. She wipes the juice with a shred of cloth and spits another seed. Maybe something here will grow. This next poem is called Ode to Heroin. I wrote it at the Summer Community of Writers. It drives first with pain into her vessel, slips down the maidenhead. The slip beneath the dermis promises a pleasure to come if one can only endure. It nestles, curls through the pores of her skin, bathes like Bathsheba in the blood. Nerves pulse and twitch, ecstatic dancers electrify and shake, ebullient lovemaking. Mouth unhinges, opens to a silent oh. The dark of eye and underbelly of brain reach out to embrace, hums and sings, I am in you. Oh, my darling, we are one. Vision clouds in 1,000 rainstorms. Water disintegrates the loose gravel path. Shards of broken glass swirl like prisms, kaleidoscope beneath the eyelids, burst the ears with a calliope of sound. This is not about what heroin will later take away. This is a recall of come hither. I have so many things to show you. I did not want to write of it, but it is stuck in my gums like dry, brittle bone. You have asked me many times, so now I try to explain it. How does the dolphin tell the dove of swimming? How does a dove tell a dolphin what it is to fly? And the next two, my last two will come from my most recent chapbook, Mother's Unbearable Itch, released by Alien Buddha Press. And this is a series of persona poems on a character called Mother. And it's from a lot of conversations I've had with female friends who feel they lose their identity once they become a mother or a wife. And this one I wasn't going to read, but Elia read a poem on Michigan, and I was raised in Michigan after we moved here from Venezuela, so I'm going to read it. In a home in Michigan. Our gray cat was skilled at slaughtering bunnies, field mice, and birds. We picked up their shredded corpses with the ends of sticks, flung them into an old metal barrel to be burned with the family trash. We had a thick, sturdy tree with tall limbs, too high for climbing, but perfect for resting under. We had hand-me-down furniture from my parents' more affluent friends. My second-hand canopy bed cradled my dreams. Inside this enclosure of maize-colored brick, there was one rule: what goes on in this house stays in this house. If something was ugly, we never spoke of it. Tiptoed around, dancers on a marley floor of broken glass, our ensemble macabre bleeding on point. We did not hide so well as we hoped. There were times when even God heard my mother scream a manic word salad. How many times had we fetched her naked from the front lawn? If the neighbors ever saw, they never said, but kept their children on their side of the fence. After a time, the unthinkable became ordinary. There were 100,000 ways to explain an injury. As the ink dried on my high school diploma, I moved out while my mom was at work. A few days later, we both cried on the phone, each sorry, each immovable. Every betrayal begins with an act of trust. And my last poem that I'll read from Mother's Unbearable Itch. Oh, I lost it there. Mother writes to Henry Miller. Henry, take me to Paris or let me find you there. I will be a rich, bored wife with sad, weepy eyes, a fat wallet, and an ache to lie beneath you because I'm tired of the rest. I will be a Russian writer, deluded that love exists apart from tragedy. I'll take your values as my own, toss and turn with lust and guilt beneath you before you set me free. I will be a Parisian whore, cheap and base and gleeful, holding my pussy in my hands, offer my sweet fuzzy muff like an itch to be scratched. I will be the sniveling fat spouse of a sniveling nasty man who feeds your need with my food and money. You'll sleep on a cot in our house. I'll hate you and you'll hate me, but we'll fuck anyway. I will be a lonely artist, feast my starving body on a banquet of your words. They will be too rich for me, but I will eat them anyway as I offer myself. You will call me by my name until you eat of my body. Then I will be cunt like every other woman you've slept with in your books and dreams. And that's my set.
Thank you, Janette. Thank you, Lake and Ben and Elia as well. We could unmute maybe and just so that they can hear some clapping. How about one more time? Woo! I love it. Thank you so much, all four of you, for sharing your work with us. And Janette, thank you for using the chat to promote your work. And I want to actually please encourage all of you, if you have books that you'd like us to look at and buy and or review, or you have work that's been published in online journals, please throw those links into the chat all day long so that we can do that and we can celebrate you. Just before we take a small break until 2:15, I want to take this opportunity, since they're all here, to shout out to my colleagues in the MFA program, Dr. Heather McNair, Professor Mark Neeson, Dr. Leah Wilson, and Professor Sarah Shotland, who is unfortunately unable to be with us today. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being the makers of this community. And we are, so indebted to your work and your care. So thank you for kicking this off, my friends, and we will feel free to, I would recommend not leaving the call. If you plan to come back for 2:15, just turn off your video and turn off your audio and go get a cup of coffee or whatever, and meet us back here at 2:15. Okay, thanks.